Hello, chess friends, and welcome to Jozarov's chess channel, and welcome to our series Playing D4. So in this series, I'm going to show you some good lines which you can use against particular defenses, against particular openings, against particular sidelines of openings. And today we're battling again against the Dutch defense. I've covered so far 3 videos how to beat the Dutch defense. You can also maybe check it out. I've created now a separate playlist in which I show you an effective way how to beat the Dutch defense. So you can check it out under playlists, and then you go beat the Dutch defense. You can also have, I think, a good preparation while playing as white. Today we're battling again against the Dutch defense, but with a different setup by black. So far we have covered the so-called stonewall setup. The stonewall setup is f6. F5, pardon me, E6, D5, C6, which creates, of course, a compact setup. And my recommendation in that against that line was the knight to H3 line. If you want to know more about this setup, check out my previous videos of the series. So today we're battling against the so-called Leningrad Dutch. It's a different setup with the move F5, G6, Bishop to G7. What black wants to do is create a King's Indian pawn structure with D6, E5 pawn breakthrough motifs, which is a little bit similar to the King's Indian, and I think again we should use this move knight to H3 in order to block black's ideas, in order to stop him to make progress like he usually wants to do. So today I've prepared a very instructive gameplay by the legendary Chucky Vasily Ivanchuk with the white pieces, and as I said, if you want to get a better understanding of this particular video, please watch the series how to beat the Dutch from the beginning. I think you'll understand what I'm talking about. This Leningrad setup is a much more flexible setup by black, and I think it's more aggressive, so that's why we should meet these ideas and counterplay it with good strategy. So here d4 can be played, of course f5, and now we go again into the fianchetto attack, bishop to g3, after knight to f6, bishop to g2, and now after the move g6, black exposed himself basically immediately and shows his cards, and he's showing us basically that he's going into the Leningrad setup, not into the stonewall setup with e6, d5 and c6 like usually. And here, one way I used to play it like this, I played also sometimes the move knight to f3 after bishop to g7, castling, and then I played the move c4. But the move c4 leads now sometimes into very complicated lines. After, for instance, something like knight to d6 and knight to c3, black can play maybe something like c6, we go d5, and now after e5, the game becomes really complicated after bishop to e6, and we have to protect our c4 pawn. Then after b3, it leads now into really one of the most complicated lines with knight to e4, and the knight is hanging, but temporarily there are, after knight takes e4, bishop takes a1, we can also take knight takes d6, we can play knight to g5. So many possibilities for both sides, and this, I think, is really one of the most tactical lines. That's why I recommend you a different line after the move bishop to g2, g6, knight to h3. What we want to do is stay a little bit more flexible. We don't want to expose ourselves immediately with the move c4. We don't want to play immediately the move knight to c3, because you have seen sometimes the c4 can be a clear target of blacks. We could have some tactical problems. Although the line that I've showed you now, it is playable, it is, of course, but I think we shouldn't study so much these openings from this tactical point of view. There are really sometimes these tactical openings, and you can get into tactical battles if you're not so good in tactics. This could be a really risky line. After the move knight to h3, we're not showing our cards. Basically, we're waiting. Bishop to g7, knight to f4. Our main goal here is to play the move d5. Then we can block a little bit black's progress with the move c5 and e5. In the game, Ivanchuk's opponent tried, of course, castling. We have castling also here by Ivanchuk. We have queen to e8, knight to c3. So that's the huge difference now. As I said, black wants to go something like d6, queen to e8, and then e5 to create a very nice pawn breakthrough motif and attack our knights. But here we are playing more flexible with the move knight to c3. Now c6 happens, and now we have e4. We can crack the position immediately. I think it's playable because, as I said, here white has, I think, a good development. Black still has to develop his minor pieces, his rooks. He still has to make some kind of a progress with the move d5, and I think it's a little bit slow because we have broken already the center. You see see. We haven't played the move c4, but basically we have battle in the center without exposing ourselves, and I think it's a huge difference. After f takes e4, we have knight to e4, knight takes e4, bishop to e4, and now d5. Okay, this bishop can be kicked away. We're retreating, but now what we can notice is here a backward pawn, and I think you could have troubles to improve this backward pawn. Even if you try something like e5, d takes e5 can be played rook to e1, or we can play rook to e1 immediately. After e4 we can play f3, breaking the position. I think it's a very risky idea here for black. So you see, in this particular line, I think we have really a comfortable game. It's a much more positional game, and we shouldn't, as I said, study so many tactics. Here, after the move bishop to g2, our main goal is now to play against the backward pawn, to occupy, of course, the weaknesses in black's position, which are, of course, the weak e5 square, which is, of course, also the weak c5 square, and in some occasions, the weak square can be also the e6 as a target. So here, knight to a6, played by Ivanchuk's opponent, we have c3, fixing now the position, and now it's time to build a battery on the e file. So queen to f7, knight to d3. You see, we're battling again against the e5 square. Very important strategy to recognize. This is really a long-term weakness in the game. Bishop to f5, but now bishop to f4, and here in the game g5 was played. We have knight to e5, bishop takes e5, and now bishop takes e5. Here I think a great player like Vasily Ivanchuk cannot lose this anymore, because he has the bishop pair. You see the dark square weaknesses in front of the king. The light square diagonal is still perfectly fine. We can break it when we maybe have the opportunity with c4, but still I think our main goal here is to simply build our attack around the e5 square, which is of course a huge weakness in black's position. So queen to g6, we have g4 kicking away the bishop. Here bishop takes e4, queen to e4, rook to e1, bishop takes queen to g6, queen to b3, and now queen to f7, and here f4. A very cool move by Vasily. Opening the position, rook to f1, we have g takes f4, rook to f4, and now simply creating this rook battery. Again, I hope you realize this is really a monster bishop. Look at these targets here in black's position. Still, we have a good battery. We can include this queen into the attack. The queen here is a little bit stuck to the defense of the b7. Although there were maybe even some better lines here for Ivanchuk, but you see there are many good moves. Black has to defend here. The knight is out of game. You cannot attack the bishop immediately on e5. This is a really good position. Rook takes f4, rook takes f4, c5, queen to c2. We have c takes d4, we have g5 here. Vasily plays, of course, much more aggressive. He wants to break the position. Rook takes f8, and now after c takes d4, we have queen to c6. In this position, Vasily goes into a favorable endgame because he has now here a possibility to create a pass pawn situation. Bishop to d6, this is a very cool move. Cutting off the knight's activity. This knight is out of game in the game now. King to f2, we have e5, d takes e5, king to f5, and now b4. Very nice idea here. c5, we can take another pawn, and here after a3, basically this game is over. Knight to c7, we can take another pawn. You see how much better this bishop is when it plays, of course, on both sides. We have h5, we can create another passer, g6, and in this position, black resigns. So this will be our warm-up game, how to beat the Leningrad Dutch. There are, of course, many sidelines. I will cover them, of course, in the continuation, but now please recognize this possibility. Knight to h3. As I said, after bishop to g7, this is really one of the most natural ideas of the Leningrad Dutch defense player. He wants to play d6, e5, because if you play even something like knight to c3 and knight to b5 in order to attack the weakness, black has the flexibility to cover with knight to a6, the weak pawn on c7, and can go into this setup. Although, as I said, it is playable again. There are many tactical lines also for white, how to counterplay this e5 idea. One of the positional ideas can be also the move d5, but we'll come to that, of course, in the continuation of the series. So far, this is the setup I want you to recognize. It's similar like in the game when we played against the Stonewall Dutch. And as I said, if you want to better study more the Dutch defense, how to beat the Dutch defense with the move knight to h3, please watch the series from the beginning. I think then you have also a better understanding of this particular video. So okay, I hope that you enjoyed this video. Meanwhile, you can watch my, as I said, the Beat the Dutch Defense series. Here's the link. And if you have troubles as black, check out my other defenses. Check out my Hyper Accelerated Dragon Sicilian Defense series and the Nimzo Indian Defense series as good, two good defenses while playing as black against e4 and d4. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.